Appreciate taking the time to open up this video. What we want to do is we want to be able to talk about some of the things that you need to consider when you're entering into the outdoor stand. We greatly appreciate you helping out with getting our events off the ground and be able to make a little bit of money for your group. What we also want to do is make sure that when you come into the concession stand, you're a little bit better prepped in order to handle the concession stand. Now, a concession stand isn't the most daunting task in the world. Once you get used to it, it's not too bad. However, if you are coming in here and it's the first time you've been in here, it would be nice to have a quick overview of what to expect as well as a visual here, and that's the objective of our video here today. So we're standing in the outdoor stand right now. As we take a look, we've got candy kind of around the bottom as well as in the middle of the stand right here. You'll also notice that we have coolers behind me that'll contain our soda and any of our food that needs to be chilled or cooled at that point. Usually these should be fully stocked and something that you should be stocking when you leave the stand. Essentially, we want to leave the stand at 0. We also have a freezer here. It looks like a giant fridge and it has a big sign on it that says this is a freezer. We do have a bunch of frozen items in there too. Usually you'll see buns and whatnot and our pretzels in there as well. As far as backup storage or any additional soda that you may need as you get through the night, we have additional coolers and we have additional supplies in the concessions garage that's on the bleacher side of this particular concession stand as well, where you can get additional items if it's deemed necessary. When you enter the stand as well, you'll notice there will be some opening procedures laminated for you. You can walk through that opening procedures list. The other thing to take a look at is make sure you have the correct menu assigned to you for that night. We have different menus depending on the type of event that you're running that night, whether it's soccer or a track meet versus a football game. We offer different things depending on the night, just based on the crowd and our historical sales trends. The other thing to keep in mind when you're in the concession stand is have an idea, know the game coming into it. Is this going to be a very well attended game? Is it going to be very well contested? If it is, then we're likely going to be looking on the higher end of merchandise that we want to make sure that we're prepping as we get ready in the stand. It could be a slower game. Maybe it's that mid-afternoon Saturday soccer game. Those typically tend to be a little bit slower, so you don't have to prep as much. That's something where if you're not quite sure or whatnot, you can reach out and we can kind of tell you what to expect for a crowd. We have a lot of data on that, and then also as we go into the game, we'll have a better idea of what we're looking at there as well. So make sure you have those items kind of stored, as well as the cash box should be in the concession stand ready for you as well. Also, once you come in here, you're going to want to open the gates. There are buttons. These are electronic gates that are in here. You'll want to just simply hit open. We have 2 different gates that are associated here. Depending on the night, you'll want to also factor in the wind and whatnot, whether you're going to open up both windows or how you want to do it. I have seen more entities for regular nights just opening up one window and doing all their business out of there, and then maybe keeping the cash kind of out of reach in a different window. Or if you got a busy night, maybe opening that up. That's something to talk about with your group as well. Who's going to be doing what? Who's going to be running food? Who's going to be dealing with cash? Trying to figure out what that rhythm's going to look like. Once you come in, one of your opening procedures is going to be getting cheese sauce ready. That's going to be put into a crock pot and essentially heated from that point. We do also have crock pots in here underneath storage, crock pot liners that is, for you to be able to put into that crock pot, so that's a little bit easier of a cleanup for you at the end of the night. If you don't end up using the crock pot liner, it's not the worst thing in the world, but expect to take a little bit more time at the end in order to clean out that crock pot. But we do have cheese sauce liners in here. The other thing that we do have is we also have a pretzel machine. You'll see the temperature control is at 140 degrees. You're going to want to get that pretzel machine going, the heat and the light. It should automatically rotate when the door is shut, and then when you open the door, it'll stop rotating as well in order to keep those pretzels getting warm throughout the particular night. We also have roller grills that we use to serve hot dogs and brats on. You'll want to get a few of those on. You'll generally get your hot dogs and brats from our cooler or maybe the freezer. Generally, when it comes to getting those ready to go, when you put it on the roller grill, a hot dog is going to take about 20 minutes to cook. A brat's going to take somewhere between 30 to 35. Depends a little bit on temperature, but that's what you can realistically expect. The other thing that you're going to want to consider when you come into the concession stand is taking a look at how many hot dog buns are currently out at that particular moment. And the reason for it is it takes about an hour for them to thaw. So you want to make sure that you're prepped for that. So you can take a look and see what exactly is sitting out there. Otherwise, you might want to look at bringing them out. Remember, you can always bring them out, let them thaw, and then at the end of the night, send them right back in. No worries there. So that's something else you're going to want to consider is where you're at for hot dog buns upon entering into the concession stand. All right, so here's how you use the popcorn machine. The popcorn machine, obviously one of our more popular items that we have here. But it does take some getting used to a little bit in order to know exactly what you're doing and to make sure that the popcorn is efficient as possible. You're going to want to go ahead in order to get prepped. You have the switches at the top of the popcorn machine. You're going to want to turn those on. You're going to be turning on heat, the movement of the kettle, as well as the interior warmer, so it should all be on there. The kettle, the big thing to keep in mind is make sure that the interior is spinning, so something needs to be turning. You'll look and there's some gears on there as well. If it is not turning, you are going to burn that popcorn, so that has to be operational. That's a quick, easy thing to take a look at to make sure that it's working functionally. Then you're going to want to load that kettle. So essentially you're going to want to put in your oil. If you're looking for the amount of oil that you want to use, depending on the amount of kernels that you're doing, the bag has some good guidance on there for you as well. We have 3 red bags underneath that have instructions or the amounts that you want to do on here. So what we're doing is a cup of oil in here. And then we're going to want to put the kernels in there. For this one, we're using 3 cups kernels. And we have those measuring cups there. So we're adding all of those kernels in there right now. And then the other thing that you can really want to be mindful of between the oil and the kernels, the big thing is the flavor salt. So the flavor salt, you're going to want to start with less because it's easier to add flavoring than it is to remove it. And when I say it's easier to add than remove, it's impossible to remove flavoring. So you put in that flavoring. Generally for this one, we started with 2 tablespoons is what we tried to measure out there. And then we added that flavoring and then we just let it roll. And then eventually it'll start popping on its own and it'll kind of start coming out of that kernel. But essentially when you start hearing the popping slow down to about 2 seconds in between each kernel, you're going to want to make sure you dump that kettle in there. Otherwise you will start burning the popcorn. But this is going to make a lot of popcorn here. But I'd also like to thank you for taking the time to go through the concession stand with me and be able to be a little bit more prepped. The other thing to consider as well, most of our events have a halftime associated with them. After you reach that halftime rush, don't worry about putting any more hot food on the grill or whatnot, unless maybe it is a football game, maybe a little bit more, but generally at the halftime of soccer, once you get through it, don't add any more hot food to your grill. You can just shut down. Really, once you reach the halftime, it's time to start slowly shutting the stand down. Your goal would be to have it fully cleaned and better than when you arrived is really kind of the goal there. To have that fully cleaned pretty shortly after the game is over, which means you're going to have to start by the time you reach halftime and really working on cleaning up our stand. There should be some tools and whatnot in here for you to clean, brooms as whatnot. You don't want to leave food on the floor. That's going to create some other issues for us. So once again, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Go MG!